Hello viewers, welcome to this video. Right, in this video we're going to be looking at a graphical UI, a graphical dashboard for your Kubernetes cluster. I'm sure you're going to like it. I came across a stunningly beautiful Kubernetes dashboard where you can manage your Kubernetes cluster, not just single cluster, but you can manage multiple Kubernetes clusters. I've done a video on Rancher and the official Kubernetes dashboard UI, but this one looks I equally like Rancher and Kontena, so something called Kontena Lens. So we're going to download that. We're going to download that application and then see how it actually looks. And we're going to explore all the options in Kontena Lens. I'm 100% sure that you will definitely like it. If you haven't tried it, please try it. It comes with a basic version, a free version, as well as a pro version. I'm not sure what's the difference between those. I haven't looked at the pricing. But I'm going to try the free version this time. And let's see, I've got my Kubernetes cluster up and running. I'm running Kubernetes version 1.17. kubectl get nodes. So I've got one master node and two worker nodes. And let's get started. I'm going to install the application Kontena Lens. So let me open up the browser and search for Kontena Lens Kubernetes. There you go, Kontena Lens, the smart dashboard for Kubernetes. So it's going to look something like this. And let's just dive straight in. And I've already downloaded this app image. It comes as an app image, which is an executable file. You can install it for Mac OS, Windows, or Linux. So I've already downloaded that. We don't need that. And cd to downloads, and I've downloaded the app image. Okay, let's start it. So all you need is a kubeconfig file. If you've got access to your cluster, you can use Kontena Lens to access your dashboard. Okay, let's start it. Lens app image. Okay, so it's going to start the application now. So that's starting. Lens container. And let me move this to another workspace. Maybe I should move this to the other workspace. Okay, there we go. So that's the welcome screen. And if you haven't got an account with Kontena, just go ahead and create it. It's just a free account. Click create account and you'll be asked for your username, password, and email. And you will get an email which you need to verify. And I've already got an account for testing, and I'm going to use that. My username is just me, and I'm not going to say my password. Login. Okay, so once you log in, that's your minimalistic dashboard. You need to add your clusters. Okay, so if I move my window about, there you go. So that's the default workspace. So there is something called workspace where you can group your clusters. If you've got multiple clusters, you can group them into a workspace. Okay, so that's the default workspace. And if you want, you can add more workspace to it. I think it's hiding behind my view here. Okay, yeah, workspaces. If you want, you can create additional workspace. Let's say you want to add a new workspace. Work, for example, work clusters, all your Kubernetes clusters, group them into the work workspace. Okay, so that's the default workspace. My default workspace. Save, and we've got a couple of workspaces now. Okay, so close that, and we are in file, add cluster. Okay, so you can see here on the bottom right which workspace you are in, and you can add your cluster here. Okay, and select kubeconfig file. If you've got your kubeconfig file in your default location, which is your home directory under .kube directory, then it will be listed here. So that's my cluster. Okay, add cluster, connecting, authentication, proxy started. Cool. So that's our cluster, and you are welcomed with a couple of warnings here because I haven't got metric server installed. I haven't got Prometheus installed, but let's fix that. Okay, for that, so that's my cluster. I'm going to right click and click on settings. So here you can define your cluster name. I'm going to call this my dev cluster. Cluster workspace, define the cluster workspace, which workspace you want to put this cluster into. So let me say, I'll put that in the default workspace. If you want to change the icon for your cluster, you can change that. If you've got an existing Prometheus running within your Kubernetes cluster, you can use that, the namespace where you have installed Prometheus and the service name and so on. But I haven't got Prometheus installed, but you can install it here. Metrics. Enable time series data visualization Prometheus stack for your cluster. Okay, install this only if you don't have an existing Prometheus stack. Yep, I don't have one, so I'm going to install. So once that's installed, we should be able to see some metrics in our dashboard. So that's installed, and I can go to my dashboard, and I need to wait for a few more minutes. And I think if I wait for like a couple minutes, you should be able to see the metrics here. Nice dashboard, and then we can go over one by one all these things here. Okay, so while we are here, we can look at the settings. The cluster settings. We go to the cluster settings. Is there anything else we need to do here? No. Okay, so cluster status, our cluster is online and the Kubernetes version we are running is 1.17.0. Number of nodes we are running, 3 nodes, and the API server address, which is 172.42.42.100. That's my master node, and we have installed the metric server. Okay, and let's close that. Nodes. All right, so nodes are ready. You can look at the status of the nodes here. 3 nodes. This node has got 1 taints associated with it. And once I leave this cluster running for a minute or so, then you should be able to see the CPU utilization, memory utilization, disk utilization, and so on. Cluster, and still it's trying to collect the metrics data from my cluster. And let's explore the UI while it's doing that. Workloads, overview, pods, deployments, daemon sets, and so on. So if I click on the workloads, as you can see here, there are like 18 pods, 3 deployments, 1 stateful set, 3 daemon sets, no jobs or no cron jobs. You can navigate to the pods and the individual resources here, or there's also the tabs here. So that's the overview. And if you look at the pods, those are the pods that are running on our cluster at the moment. And you can search for a pod. For example, if I search for Calico, it's going to list all the Calico nodes. I'm not sure why it's listing the other ones as well, because we definitely have the Calico filter. Okay, and we can also specify which namespace you want. Lens metrics. So that's the applications, the resources that are deployed in the Lens metrics namespace, and you can see the number of containers here. And if it's green, it's healthy, and it's controlled by replica set, daemon set. That's all looking good. And if you want to look at all the namespaces, you just untick the namespace, and it's going to list the resources on all the namespaces. Okay, so that's part. We've got deployments, we've got daemon sets, stateful sets. There is a problem with Prometheus running. Create pod Prometheus is forbidden. Okay, there's some service account permission related issues which we can debug later. And now if I go to cluster, yep, so now you can see CPU utilization, memory utilization. So that's memory utilization. It's using about 800 meg. That's the worker. And that's the master node, and it's using about 900 meg of memory. And CPU, it's about 0.131. And you can see here capacity, CPU capacity. So I've got 2 CPUs for my master node. Memory, I've allocated 2 gig of memory. Number of pods running, the total limits on the number of pods that can run on this node is like 110. And currently it's running like 10 pods. And if you look on the worker nodes, you can see a different set of metrics for that. Sorry, different statistics. Okay, and on the bottom pane here, you see a list of warnings. Okay, And what else? Okay, so let's go to let's deploy the other components that we can navigate. So we've got config maps, secrets, list of secrets, resource quotas. If you want to, I've done a video on Kubernetes resource quotas. You can watch that. And if you want to add a new resource quota, you can add it here. It's not just for visualizing your Kubernetes cluster, but it also allows you to manage your Kubernetes cluster. You can create resources and so on. Okay, so certificates, issues, HPA, no horizontal pod auto scaling setup. Okay, that's cool. And now let's look at the network. That's where you see the services. So we've got these services. These are all of type cluster IP. Ingress, no ingress. I don't think we've got ingress enabled. Network policies, storage, persistent volume claims, persistent volumes. I don't have any storage class. I haven't enabled persistent volumes. So that's storage. Namespaces, we've got these namespaces. If you want to add a namespace, you can add your namespace here. Events, so that's going to list all the events in all the namespaces. If you want to specify a particular namespace, lens metrics, so those are the events from the lens metrics namespace. If I untick that, it's going to show me events from all the namespaces. Apps, I will come to that in a minute. So we've got service accounts, role bindings, roles, pod security policies, custom resources. I don't have any custom resource defined here. Okay, so now let's go to apps. So apps are like Helm charts. They are Helm charts actually. So if you go to charts, you can search for charts. Those are the list of charts. Let's see. I'll try and install a chart, for example, DocuWiki. So there is a DocuWiki Helm chart that we can install. Releases. So once you install, it will appear here. Okay, and before installing the Helm chart, I just want to look at the other capabilities that we can do with the Kontena Lens. It also comes with a terminal. If you double click at the bottom here, there you go. So that's your terminal, and you can run your kubectl commands, kubectl get nodes. You can add additional lots of terminals here if you want. Okay, let's close that. And also nodes. If I go to nodes, so now you can see the graphics, the metrics, how much CPU it's using. It's using about 7%. It has got 2 cores, 2 gig of memory, and it's using 51%. Disk, 10 gig of disk, and it's using like 12% at the moment. That's the master machine. You can see under the roles here, and that one has got 1 taints associated with it. And if you click on the 3 dots here, you can cardon a node. For example, if I want to cardon kworker2, I can click on these 3 dots, cardon. Okay, that's cardon, and you will see scheduling disabled. So basically, if you want to do some maintenance work, you can cardon the node, and that will disable scheduling on that particular node. Let's uncardon it. Okay, that's done, and the scheduling disable is gone now. And if you want to drain any pods that are running on this node, you can drain it. If you want, you can edit it. If you edit it, it will list you in the terminal below. If you want to edit any of the configurations options for your node, you can do that. I'm going to click cancel, and even it allows you to get a shell into these nodes. So if you click on the shell, it's connecting to kworker2 at the moment. So yep, so we are in kworker2, and you got a shell for that container. And if I click on kworker2, you will see details about that particular node, kworker2, and it's loading the graph at the moment for CPU. We've got the graph for memory, disk, and pods, the number of pods running on this particular node. And you can see down here the list of pods that are running on this particular node. Okay, so if I click on kmaster, that again is running a set of pods on this particular node, and that one is to get a shell to your node. That one is cardon, drain, edit or delete the node. Okay. Right. What else? Okay, if you want to get a shell into a particular container, for example, if I go to pods here, let's say if we want to get into this pod, for example, and if you click on the three dots here, you can look at the logs. Okay, so that's the logs. It's trying to get the logs. Okay, let's try something else. Calico node logs. Okay, it's trying to fetch the logs. Okay, so let's get a shell into that container. Starting container project executable file not found in the path. Okay, all right, let's not worry about that. But okay, let's do this one. Let's try and get a shell into this Prometheus container. Prometheus logs. Nope, that's okay. Shell. Cool. So we are inside the Prometheus container. That's cool. And now let's try and deploy a Helm chart. File preferences. There you go. So that's where you install your Helm repository. So by default, stable Helm repository is enabled for you. So you can install charts from this repository. Kubernetes charts, storage, googleapis.com, and if you want, you can install additional repositories. Okay, so that's where you add your Helm repository if you want, but stable repository comes enabled by default. I don't know how this icon changed. It was different when I just added it. Okay, so now let's go and try and install. Go to apps, go to charts, and I'm going to search for DokuWiki. There we go. And if I click on that one, DokuWiki is a standard compliant, wiki optimized. Okay, all looking good. And I'm going to hit install. So you'll be wondering, if we were to install a chart from a command line using Helm command, we can download the values file, we can update whatever we want, and then we can install it. But this lets you just install it. But when you click the install button, it's going to give you the manifest that it's going to deploy, where you can update any of the configurations that you want. So if I click install, down here, it's going to fetch the values file. Yeah, it has fetched the values files. Whatever change you want, you can do here. And then you should be able to install your Helm chart. Okay, so I'm going to search for persistence. Persistence is enabled. So if I leave it enabled, it's going to be, the pods are going to be in the pending state because I don't have persistence dynamic volume provisioning enabled in my cluster. So I'm going to change that to false. And I'm also going to change the load balancer type, the service type, because I don't have MetalLB installed. I'm going to change that to node port. Okay, node ports, and for HTTP, I'm going to say 32322, HTTPS 32323. All right, so I think that's all I want to update in this Helm chart, and now I can deploy it. Where do you want to deploy? If you want to deploy in a particular namespace, you can select that, and a particular version of this Helm chart, you can choose that. Name. If you don't give it a name, it's going to give you a random name, so it's better to give it a name, and I'm going to click install. Okay, so that's installing the DokuWiki chart. That's installed. View Helm release. And here we can see what resources it has deployed for us. Release DokuWiki, come on, load. Let's minimize that. That's the release, DokuWiki Helm release that we installed. And there we go, status is deployed less than 1 minute ago. And down here, the list of resources this Helm chart has deployed for us is the secret, service, and the deployment here. Okay, so now if I go to overview, and you can see here there's one pending, one pod pending, one deployment pending. And if I go to deployments and I want to choose the default, So 0 of 1, so it's waiting for the pod, and you can see here condition is progressing, and if I look at the pods, it's in the orange color because it's getting deployed at the moment. So once it's healthy, it will turn green, and then we should be able to look at the services. Services is down here under the network section, services. Okay, so it hasn't created the service yet, I think. All right, so let's go back to pods and see if it's healthy. No, it's still not healthy. Let's look at the events. Successfully pulled image, DocuWiki, created a container DocuWiki. So no errors. It has been deployed, but we are just waiting for the pod to start. Okay, so the pod is now healthy, and you can see it's green, running, and ready. Deployments 1 of 1, so all the pods is running. I don't know why it's still showing progressing. Replica set has successfully progressed. Okay. Scale, if you want, we can scale it. And if I go to overview, now everything is green. All of them are running fine. On the bottom pane here, you can see the events and services. I was expecting the DocuWiki service to be here, but I don't know why it's not listed here. But anyways, okay, let's go to the releases, DocuWiki, and it says it's deployed. Secret, and it has deployed a service for us in the default namespace, but I can't find it. Network services, that's where you usually find the service, but I'm not sure why I'm not seeing that. Probably let's try it from the console here. kubectl get service. kubectl get service. Yep, there I see. There you go. DocuWiki, and it's running on node port 32323. That's looking good. I don't know why I'm not able to see it in this filter here. So if I unselect that and I search for DocuWiki, nope, that's very strange. Okay, but when I was testing this for this video, I saw it. So under network services, you restrict it to the default namespace. I only see the Kubernetes service, but not the DocuWiki service. Okay, anyways, let's try and access it. And that's the pod, and if you want, you can look at the logs for this pod. There you go. Pod, and it's healthy, and those are the health checks done by the service, I think. Okay, so that's running fine. Let's try and access it. What was the node port that we used? 32322, I think. Yep. Let's try and find that. Okay, I don't want the terminal, I want the web browser. HTTP 172.42.42.200. I'm not sure what's my IP address of the worker nodes are. Let's find that out. kubectl get nodes -o wide. 172.42.42.101. Let's try and access it from that machine. 172.42.42.101:32322. Cool, so that's our DocuWiki. That's working fine, but I'm entirely not sure why it's not being listed in this one. But anyway, so that's Kontena Lens. Play with it. I really like it. I'm enjoying it, especially if you've got multiple clusters to manage on a daily basis. If you work, if you interact with multiple clusters, then it will be a very useful tool. You can group them into workspaces, and you can add as many clusters as you want, and it gives you a nice graphical way to understand and visualize your Kubernetes cluster. For those of you who are not command line professionals or would like a graphical UI, then I would say this one is like the best. At least it looks very beautiful. There are a few gotchas. There are a few bugs here and there when I tried it, but still it looks beautiful. I would recommend using this. Yep. Cool. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show you in this video, and hopefully you enjoyed it. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will see you all in my next video. Bye bye.